Good morning from Moscow. It's Friday the 31st of July. In a moment, no sign of compromise from Russia on its war on Ukraine. And could Trump, Xi and Putin meet in China? First, the Russian economy, which is the top story in today's Nezavisima Gazeta. We see this arresting image of a combine harvester with Russian tricolours and a Z, symbol of the so-called special military operation, the war in Ukraine. And the caption, agriculture is plunging into crisis. But this isn't just about agriculture. For the Russian economy, the first half of 2026 is strikingly different from the first half of 2025. GDP is growing, but about 4 times slower than last year. The decline in agriculture is intensifying. Construction is already deep in the red. The share of unprofitable enterprises is increasing. It now exceeds 34% of the organisations monitored by the state statistics agency, Rosstat. What's more, Rosstat doesn't take into account small businesses, which means that the real situation may be even worse. At the same time, the financial situation of Russians began to deteriorate sharply. For the population, the growth of real disposable incomes slowed by almost 6 times compared to last year. Now, I mentioned GDP. Well, according to official statistics, between January and June, GDP grew 0.3% year on year. The headline in today's Kommersant: industrialists are not in a good mood. The Business Climate Index of the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs continued to decline. In July, it stood at 42.4 points, the lowest in the past year. This trend is partly due to problems with logistics against the backdrop of the fuel crisis. In addition, the demand for the products of companies continues to fall, and according to a survey of entrepreneurs, the resources to accelerate production seem largely exhausted. Yedomosti notes that due to attacks on oil refineries, meaning Ukrainian drone attacks, the agricultural sector, logistics and industry are most susceptible to crisis. Moskovsky Komsomolets today denies that the tide in the war has turned in Ukraine's favour. Ukraine has not achieved any turning point in military terms. Its long-range strikes have not yet caused Russia the kind of damage that could be regarded by the authorities as a reason to seek compromises. The damage from Ukrainian strikes on Russia is incomparable with Russian strikes on Ukraine. The paper quotes former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who is now deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council. Medvedev said that Russia can only be saved by victory in the special military operation. This phrase is unambiguous. Izvestia, the APEC summit, may become the platform for talks between Putin, Xi and Trump. This is the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in China in November. No guarantee that the 3 leaders will have a meeting, but the paper talks of potential contacts between the leaders of Russia, China and the US. Finally, back to the Russian economy, this time rising prices and the joke section of today's Komsomolskaya Pravda. These days, spring onions are so expensive, there's no shame in giving a bunch of them to a young lady on International Women's Day. And this in Moskovsky Komsomolets, which requires first a little explanation. You know, in the summer in Russia, in most apartment blocks, the hot water gets turned off for up to 2 weeks for maintenance. So now the joke. Petrovich, what happened to your magnificent southern suntan? They switched the water back on.